Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 115, and it is for the beginners. Tiny update first. Today is Wednesday, January 8th, which means that applications for Creatrix, the witchy retreat for artists and creatives to reawaken their inspiration here on Edisto Island, South Carolina, are open to the waitlist. I will be sending out a reminder in a couple of days, so if you're not on that waitlist and you'd like to be, go ahead and check the show notes and you'll hear from me. If there's, any spaces left. I wouldn't be advertising something that was full. That's just shitty. As of this recording on Tuesday, January 7th, there are 7 places left for this retreat, which is in mid to late May 2025. So let's dive in. This episode is by request from Rachel, who found me wrote to me on Instagram and asked to discuss the very uncomfortable place where your passion and enthusiasm vastly exceed your actual skill level and abilities. And she is directly talking about aerial arts, but I think that this applies to all disciplines for any modality that we become obsessed with and in love with and want to be really good at, but we're not yet, and that's uncomfortable. So I asked her some questions about how this shows up for her in her life and in her training and how it gets in the way. And she shared with me that it manifests in an impatience and a predisposition to being frustrated or dissatisfied with what you're doing, fixating on a nebulous, abstract future goal rather than being able to enjoy the process. She acknowledges that it's good advice to fall in love with the process itself and to enjoy the journey. And she also acknowledges that it's very possible to perform and to tell stories well as a beginner. But in her core of cores, she so values doing things with excellence, a fluency of skill, and serving the stories that she's telling in a way that does them justice. She goes on to share that it feels really self-conscious to be passionate about something when you're a total noob at it. She's still doing it because, diving in with a full heart feels both profoundly vulnerable and truthful, which is a very brave thing to do. So it is my hope that this episode can be helpful for anyone in the beginning stages of a journey who has fallen in love with something, become obsessed with something, really wants to be good at it, and isn't yet, because this shit takes time. Most artistic disciplines take time, and that time cannot be given a shortcut. If it could be given a shortcut, I wouldn't advise you to take it, because all of that time, every single moment of it, every minute of it, every second of it is valuable and necessary to develop into the creature that you wish to be. So point number 1, Rachel and many other new beginners have what I call ambition. Ambition is a precious resource. It is not an infinite resource. Ambition should be honored while it's breathing fire in your solar plexus. I guess I say solar plexus because that's where I feel my own ambitions, like a little vibration right there in the solar plexus. But wherever you feel it in your body, if ambition is breathing fire at you, honor that while you have it. And feed it while it lives. It doesn't last forever. If you don't give it any food, eventually it will just sort of dissolve. And that's not just my lived experience talking. That's having spoken to old people a lot. There's a lot of old people in my life. I love them. And they tell me things. It's also true that when you have ambition like this, it is frustrating. And I can remember very clearly being a young artist. I was still in training for circus, and I just had these lofty visions of being able to do a back walkover and a chest stand and like to spin really fast and just being really strong. And I wasn't any of those things. And I was still painstakingly learning my way at the age of 25 into and out of a back bend, which was a long and painful process because I had to work through a lot of old scar tissue to get there. In particular, like the holy grail of a bendy back was the thing that I wanted most when I was a very young new artist. And a bendy back is not something that you can rush and shouldn't. But the disparity, I don't even know if that's a word, the discrepancy between my back the way it was and my back the way I wanted it to be, looking around me in Circus Center at those in the advanced contortion program. Why was I comparing myself to the students in the advanced contortion program? Because it looked so beautiful and I wanted to be that. This was an appropriate goal for me. It was. And it was appropriate as well to acknowledge the deficit in where I was and where I wanted to be. However, it was so distracting to me that I completely failed to acknowledge all of the things that I already had that were very much working in my favor. And it was a deadline that made all the difference for me because I needed to come up with a dance solo for a fusion belly dance and circus troupe that I was a part of called Nikaya Dance with Christina Canizares. I needed a solo, and that meant that I was going to have to put something together. Putting something together means you have to acknowledge what you already have on the table. Let's say you want to submit to a writing contest, and you wish you had a novel. Well, you don't have a novel, but you might have a short story, you might have a collection of poems. What do you already have on the table to work with? And don't dismiss these things as not good enough. To do so is to dishonor yourself profoundly. Lean way into what you already have. Nourish them, celebrate them. And I don't mean that in this white lady manifest your destiny kind of way. When I say celebrate what you already have that's on the table, I mean literally acknowledge it and find a way to fall in love with it. It doesn't do any good to just give yourself lip service. I mean actually become happy about the things that you do have. For me, at this time in my development, what that was I could hold a stage. I was a fully trained dancer. I had wonderful movement quality. I had a gorgeous, muscly back and super open shoulders. I was ignoring all this shit and considering it unworthy because I couldn't do a chest stand. My friends, that's not cool. So this is literally an exercise for you. This isn't white lady manifest your destiny bullshit. When I say celebrate that you already have on the table, that list that I just numbered off about awesome things about me when I was 25, that's a brag list. My mission to you, should you choose to accept it, is to create a brag list. I am very confident that you know all of the things in which you feel about yourself are shortcomings. That was a very awkward way to say that. I'm confident that you already know what you consider to be your shortcomings in your creative discipline. I don't really feel like we need to number those out because you're already aware of them. How aware are you of what you do have in your arsenal? My challenge to you: make that list. Not only is it useful to be able to acknowledge what these things are, the tools that you already do have in your tool belt, it's also just fun. It's so fun. Rattling off my brag list just now, that was fun. I could keep going. I won't, because I got more to say, and we're already 10 minutes in. So let's dig deeper into the discomfort that we feel when other people know that we're passionate about something, because it is a really vulnerable feeling, especially if you're not good at it yet. As we've already declared, there are things that you are good at, and we are going to lean into those and nourish those, while at the same time building your skill set in the other areas. So that can be helpful in your feelings that you have about yourself, but how do you feel about being frankly open to other people's contempt because you have so much obvious love and enthusiasm for this thing? I think that the answer to that is not in positive affirmation, like, I can do it, like, it'll just take time. Both of those things are true. It is not all that helpful. In the Audacity project, in the very first week, I asked people to identify and acknowledge their gremlins. And the gremlins are things that are not circumstantial. They're internal boundaries, not boundaries, hurdles. The self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, the perfectionism, the things that make you want to stop. And that's the point of a gremlin. A gremlin is trying to get you to stop doing the cool thing that you're doing because it's scary. On the other side of a gremlin is an antidote. It is the reason that you haven't quit in the first place, your drive, your muse, your obsession for this thing. In between a gremlin and an antidote is the word and. That is the word that I want you to really embrace. It's not pretending that the gremlins aren't true. You don't need to get rid of them. You don't need to pretend that they're not there. You just need to include the and when you acknowledge them. For example, a gremlin would be, I feel vulnerable to other people's contempt when my desire is obvious. That is a gremlin. It makes us want to constrict our energy and our action in order to feel safe again. The trouble is that if we obey this gremlin and we constrict our energy, we stop doing the cool thing. So what is the and in between the gremlin and the antidote? I would say, I feel vulnerable to other people's contempt when my desire is obvious. And owning and nourishing my desire is a profound act of love and courage. And when it comes down to it, like, who do you want to be? It's appropriate and worthwhile to feel vulnerable in the act of loving something. Would you rather be someone who doesn't love anything, too cool for school? Because that's kind of what part of love is being open to being hurt by the thing that you love and loving it anyway. What a fucking absolute legend you are for doing this in spite of that gremlin. And this was very helpful to me, especially when I was an emerging artist crying in the basement of Circus Center, surrounded by the professionals, 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me, that I did show up and my desire was obvious. My obsession was obvious. And I showed up week after week, multiple times a week. And every time I left Circus Center and got on that fucking N train for the long haul home, the hour-long ride home, I was never sorry that I'd come. And I was always really fucking proud of myself. Because going into a room full of professionals and struggle bussing your way through a beginner drill in any discipline, that's a 1% kind of action. Most people will not do that for all the reasons that you already know. But you're doing it. Don't you feel a little bit pleased by that? I hope that you feel pleased by that. And regardless of, like how proud of ourselves we are in this beginning time frame, sometime or another, we're likely to get distracted by a gremlin. You're like, oh, this is actually like really uncomfortable right now in this moment. And once again, positive affirmation is not the way. It can be helpful, but not if you're avoiding the gremlins. Avoidance is not the way. You need to speak that shit. Tell it to a friend that you trust. Express it. Write it down. Just make sure that you acknowledge it. Like, have an emotional response to it. Get swampy about it. Move your body. Shake. Whatever. Just feel the feelings. Let it move through you. Keep your energy open. Both things can be true. You can feel insecure. You can feel fear of judgment. You can feel like what you're doing isn't good enough. And at the same time, you can love the things that you are already good at. You can honor your ambition. You can make moves to serve and honor your ambition, knowing that it will take time. All of this can be true in the exact same moment because you contain multitudes. That is so fucking badass. So swamp out your feelings. Find the and. Keep the channel open. And if you're unfamiliar with where I got that phrase, keep the channel open, I'm gonna tell you. So the choreographer for Oklahoma, it's Agnes DeMille. And after the opening of Oklahoma, she went and had a drink with Martha Graham. If you don't know who Martha Graham is, she basically changed the face of modern dance worldwide. So they were sitting there having a drink, and Agnes, who had just had this huge success, right? She just choreographed Oklahoma. Even after that, she confessed to Martha Graham that she had a burning desire to be excellent, but no faith that she could be. Martha's response to her was this: there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all of time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours, clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep yourself open and aware to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. And that's the end of the quote, like as it kind of pertains, but I'm going to keep going because the story, as it's recorded by Agnes DeMille, is a little bit longer. So I'm going to share with you the rest of it as well. Martha Graham went on to say, "As for you, Agnes, you have so far used about 1/3 of your talent." Agnes then said, "But when I see my work, I take for granted what other people value in it. I see only its ineptitude, inorganic flaws, and crudities. I am not pleased or satisfied." Martha said, "No artist is pleased." Agnes, "But then there is no satisfaction." Martha, "No satisfaction whatever at any time," she cried out passionately. "There is only a queer divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than the others." End quote. I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you'd like to read it for yourselves. I've read it many, many, many times. Now, there are things that I love it. I mean, I've just repeated it on my podcast. So yeah, I love it. There are some things that I disagree with Martha on. One is that no artist is pleased, because I've been pleased lots of times. I'm monstrous pleased. Perhaps that's because I swung so far in the opposite direction on the pendulum of perfectionism with regards to my artwork. Like I have no perfectionism left in the sense of my artwork. In my personal life, as I have discovered, it's a different story, but this is not about my personal life. So I think that there is many possibilities to be pleased and satisfied. I also don't think that we're more alive than other people. I think that an artist has access to experiences in life that most people probably won't experience, because to make art in the first place is a 1% action. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing this? I know why we're doing this, but like from an outside perspective, I remember when I decided I was going to move to San Francisco and learn how to dance on the curtains because I wanted to be a circus artist. And my stepmom was like, okay. And I was like, what, you don't think that I should? She's like, no, it's not that I don't think you should. I just don't get it. I just don't understand why you would want to do that. And that's fair enough. Like, I didn't need her to understand, and I didn't try to explain it to her because that would have been absolutely fruitless. But it was a kind of peace having that conversation, because not only did I understand that it was fruitless to try and explain to her this queer divine dissatisfaction, this blessed unrest that was driving me across the country to remake my body and myself into the creature that I wanted to be. There's no point like trying to explain that. If someone doesn't get it, they don't get it. They don't need to get it. Why do they need to get it? They're not doing it. You're doing it. You get it. That's enough. That's enough. And if I want to like apply the principles of what we've laid out in this podcast to that moment, it would be: people criticize and dismiss me for following my dreams and desires, and I follow them anyway because I will honor myself without question. It is my fucking life. That last one is actually a direct quote from my dear Uncle Bradley. I'll repeat it for posterity. I will honor myself without question. It is my fucking life. So, to recap what we've done here today, when you're in the beginner place, first of all, like, beginner mind is a beautiful thing. That's when the audacity of the new artist is at its most potent. So eat up, get every shred of meat off the bone, get every drop. But your ambition is precious. Honor it. While you are honoring it, and while you are feeling this dissatisfaction and this frustration with where you might be, also find the things that you already have on the table, the tools already in the tool belt, the things that you're already good at. Love those, celebrate them, make a brag list. And enjoy making that brag list. And when the gremlins are barking in your ear, find the and. Yes, this gremlin is true, and blank. Don't avoid the gremlins. Don't avoid your feelings. Express it, speak it, write it, swamp it out, move your body. And keep the channel open. All right, my friends, I have gone over the 20-minute mark. I always think of Alex and Sorry anytime I go over 20 minutes, because they were like, can you make it longer? And I was like, I don't know if I can. Well, today I can. We're going to reach 24 minutes, Alex. I'm going to be working through all of the requests that I've had. I've had just like really good requests and profound requests that I've needed to take some time with. So we're going to be tackling those. If you also have suggestions and requests for future episodes, you can reach me on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. I want to thank those of you who have been like rating and reviewing the podcast. It means a great deal to me. So thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who has written in to ask or even just to tell me that you listen. It's very helpful. This podcast is powered by Patreon. Extra special shout out to my patrons for making this and so many more things possible in my life, for making my work better than it would have been before. This wouldn't exist without you. Thank you. Until next time, friends, keep the channel open and don't go back to sleep.